Hey everybody, this is Perch. This kind of like this video is not going to mean much. I know. Just make your jokes. It's fine. But I was going through a bunch of old comics, so I'm going through this process right now where I'm taking my comics and I'm making sure kind of the bags are in good shape. And generally, they are. The boards are good, and I'm going through this process where I'm just getting everything kind of aligned and that life is all fine. And I'm putting them in new, in some cases I've got new containers I'm putting them in. So just it's like the about every 5 to 10 years I tend to go through the comics, particularly the ones that are super valuable, and I just make sure everything's okay. And it's not a big deal. It's quick, but I always have different feelings, and I feel like I could write down kind of the feeling I'm having in these moments, like a weird journal. So you go through different kind of thought processes. I remember when I was doing this about 15 years ago, and I was thinking about how many of these comics would convert into movies and what wouldn't. And that was kind of my thought process as I'm going through everything. This time when I'm doing it, what I was struck by, and this is a negative kind of comment, is a glass half empty kind of comment, is how many of these comics have very little point to them. And I'm going to pick on somebody, and he was a guest on the show, so I feel bad about that. But it's not so I want to make it very clear. I'm not knocking him. So I did an interview with Colin Bunn a bit ago, and Colin Bunn did an X-Men run. He did a Magneto run, and he did a run on X-Men. And I believe his run, I'm trying to remember, and I think his run was with Greg Land, was the artist on it. And what's curious about it is that I think the comics, I was reading them, and the comics were perfectly good. There was nothing wrong with them. They were fine. They're not Dark Phoenix Saga. No, I'm just being honest. They weren't like this is the most amazing comic I've ever read, but they were good. I mean, they're like I was surprised as I went through and read some of them again. I read the Apocalypse Wars, and there was a bit about Archangel and was he going to ascend and kind of a status quo change. And at this time, Magneto was leading the team, and Sabretooth was on it, and Monet, and Psylocke, and then he had kind of a Black Ops group, a Mystique, and all this stuff. And it was entertaining. Like I was reading it, and I'm like, well, listen, a hell of a lot better than what's going on in the Krakoa era right now. It was decent stuff. But it's also forgettable. And this was the thought process that was going through my head: is how many of these comics really don't matter. And when I say don't matter, I mean, if it creates a memory in your mind, it matters. It's fine. It's not like when I say doesn't matter, I'm saying it a little casually. No, I'm not trying to protect the feelings of the creators or anyone else. I'm just saying, do you remember? And this was the other thought process for a specific character. Warren Worthington the third, right? Angel. Do you have any idea how absolutely batshit crazy that character, what that character has been through? Like, I recently reread the Rick Remender X-Force run, where he ascended into being kind of the new Apocalypse. And then I read this Colin Bunn run where, and basically, and I'd say spoilers, but, these are comics several years old. Spoilers are, Archangel was kind of battling with that part of his personality. Wheezy kind of set this up back in the old days of X Factor. And he basically what happened is that he was kind of, he'd been converted by Apocalypse and all the rest, and he had this kind of darkness in him, and he wasn't the simple kind of angel anymore, and there's a prone to violence, and he got these urges, etc. And so, they'd kind of toyed around with this for quite a while in different forms. And there's a part where, God, who was the writer? Anyway, there's a part in the X-Men books where he actually, his blood would kind of cure AIDS. That's not a joke. I'm not being sarcastic about that. Like, Angel's blood was like an AIDS cure. It like there was some wild shit in the past that would go on. But anyway, then the character was in, I mean, lots of different things happened. The character was in a relationship with Psylocke and then kind of not. And then again, and then he joined X-Force, but he was being tempted by the fact that, he might ascend into Apocalypse, and then he did ascend into Apocalypse, and then Psylocke had to kill him, and then, he was reborn kind of without his memories as just Angel again. He was kind of a husk. He was kind of wandering around as a hippie. And then he was unified again with like this character has been all over the goddamn map. I mean, we talk about like other characters. I think I'm curious what any of you say. If you've been following the X-Men, is there any other character who's been absolutely dicked around and had like every possible thing happen to him, more than Angel? If you pick up like very little happened to him, he's like kind of rich playboy guy, boned a lot of girls over in New Mexico. And then, Wheezy did that bit where he got his, wings ripped off during the Mutant Massacre and all that kind of stuff. And since that time, it is balls out crazy. That character has no tether. I have no idea, to be honest, what the status quo of that character. I've read all the comics, so I'm saying this a little bit facetiously, but I have no idea what the status quo of Angel is right now. Like, is he evil, still fighting, sinister urges, or not, or like what? Like, where is that even at now? I mean, who the fuck knows, right? That is some crazy shit right now with him. But the point here is, and again, I'm not insulting Cullen Bunn, but this run he did was pretty good. This is during the time when the Terrigen Mist was on the planet. The Inhumans were killing off the mutants. The mutants were fighting for their lives and other stuff and everything else. This was during the aborted time where Rick Remender was going to come in and take over the X-Titles over Bendis and move them to Mars or some shit. And then, by the way, if you look at the last, 6-7 years of the X-Men, and you realize that a ton of the storylines that both Hickman and Ewing and Gillen that they did were absolutely cribbed and borrowed from our good buddy there, Remender. And I'm still struck by the fact that Marvel and a lot of the people who work for Marvel, and I will stand by it. The guy is not a friend of mine. I don't mean it, but when I say that, I don't mean he's like an enemy. I'm just saying Rick Remender is not on my Christmas card list. But I will say that guy got 100% bent over and screwed by Marvel. And a lot of people who, claim they were his friends and everything else, they absolutely jacked that guy. And if anybody's got a grievance about certain ways that a comic company treats him, I know Rick Remender's, irritable at times, let's say, maybe not always a super stable individual. But Marvel absolutely, and in particular, some of the people who worked with him were dicks to that guy. I feel for him for sure. But anyway, be that as it may, it's wild when you consider how many of the X-Men storylines are completely ones that Remender set up and other people just kind of followed through on. The lot of what you see today were kind of some of his crazy ideas. And if you read his X-Force run again, you get there. But sorry, I'm getting astray. The point here is, have any of you looked at comics and you've looked at some of these runs and you like the comics, you like the stories, there's nothing inherently wrong with them, but they don't matter. And they don't matter because maybe the company is too quick to reboot and just try something new. Maybe, it's sandwiched between runs, all the rest. But there's a tragedy in there in that you have comic creators who are actually trying to do some unique things, push the characters and everything else. And yet the run winds up landing in the overall continuity as something that is completely pointless. And when I say pointless, again, if you enjoyed those comics, if you read them, if you liked them, nothing wrong with that, and good for you. And cool, right? I mean, all good. But that doesn't change the fact that they all don't really matter. That, Cullen Bunn's run actually did some interesting things around Monet, around Sabretooth, around Magneto, that other writers have entirely ignored. Why? Why give that away? Why isn't that, why isn't anybody touching on that? Why don't people go back to it? There's some good stuff there. I often proclaim that comic books needs this serialized storytelling, that everything should matter. I'm a big fan of continuity. I think that comics are at their best when they build on each other. And so to me, it hits me a little bit personally when you have these runs where people are going and trying to do things. And again, I'm not saying that Cullen Bunn's X-Men run was equivalent to the Dark Phoenix saga. It's not. But it's a hell of a lot better than a lot of things that we've seen in that title. And, and even if it wasn't, shouldn't it still matter? And I'll leave you with this thought. At times, I think when people complain about comics, there's why are you so bent out of shape about this? Why do you care? Why are you getting worked up about comics? Well, unlike cartoons, unlike movies, unlike a lot of other parts of pop culture, comics are designed to be memorable. They're designed to live on forever. They're designed to last. That's what comics are supposed to be. That's what, as they're at their best, that's the entire product. You're putting out a monthly book. You're putting out a periodical. You're putting out something where the storyline in one issue builds to the next issue. That is what you're doing. Whether you like that or not, whether you respect it or not, is a different story. But that is what comics are. You can't deny that. If you're trying to hawk a $3.99, $4.99 comic every goddamn month, you are into serialized storytelling. Whether you like it or not, that's what you're doing. And so, given that, it all needs to matter. The comics do need to matter. The comics do need to last. They do need to be maintained. It actually is a big deal if you're breaking the rules of what was established before. If you're slipping something into continuity, you shouldn't do that casually, because people should live with it. Because what you're doing should be something that lasts. That's the whole point. And so I bring all this up because at times comics feels like it's, just kind of, it just feels like it's a shuffle. And that is the flaw. That's where things go bad. That's where people stop reading. That's where people stop caring. The reality is I was sorting through all these comics and putting things in boxes, and I was remembering all these moments. I hated the feeling of like, I'd completely forgotten about this run. I hated that feeling. I hated it because you shouldn't ever forget about a run. You may not like the run. Chuck Austin saying that Angel's blood cures AIDS is dumb. Make no mistake about it. But it was said. It was done. So at some point, it matters. It always matters. So be thoughtful about what it is, and these things shouldn't be memory holes. So question for you. I know it's this long video, but what comics do you like? Would you also admit don't matter to the continuity? I mean, if you take any run from Spider-Man, Batman, Avengers, X-Men, Justice League, Teen Titans, etc., there's going to be arcs in there. There's going to be things in there that completely are irrelevant. What are ones you like that are irrelevant, and does it bother you? Maybe you're a better man than me. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Lots of people are. Do you feel like, it doesn't matter, but I still like it. I still enjoy it. I still love it. That's cool. Good for you. I'm glad you got yourself into that headspace. I'm still working on it. Thanks for listening.